A huge thank you to Robert Bishop for sponsoring today's video on Patreon. Ygra versus Zoraline, Queen Marquesa, and Green Sleeves. Well, we've got multiple lands and a jeweled lotus ready for our commander, so yeah, should be able to get down the black market connections pretty quickly to refill our hands, so we'll try this. Turn 1 Sol Ring from Queen Marquesa. And we draw into Tamiyo's Safekeeping. There's no guarantee that we're going to get into a third land by turn 3 for the black market connections, so I'll risk getting this down and not holding it up for our commander. Sorry, Cleric class from the Life Gain Soul Sisters player as well. Royal Assassins, so it might be an Assassin's deck that our opponent's gone for, or maybe Mercenaries, something like that. And down come a couple of 1-drops, a Garrison Cat, and a Viscera Seer, so only 4 cards in hand for the Orzhov player. Alright, we were going to get into a third land apparently, so let's just make it a forest. And our commander does have wards, so we'll try getting that into play and hopefully it will survive. Mono green player throws out the Ozolith, so obviously has some plus counter side shenanigans here. A Mosswalk Bridge has a card hidden underneath there. And an Enlightened Tutor during the upkeep for Queen Marquesa will put an artifact or enchantment on top. Searched out a No Mercy, so wants to set up a Pillow Fort. Not particularly bothered about getting into the red zone, so he can set up a Pillow Fort all he wants here. Zoraline, the second commander to hit play thanks to our fast mana. Can't afford to pay the cost on that though. So managed to stick our commander, not going to be swinging in thanks to the Royal Assassin anyway, although they don't want to sacrifice a Royal Assassin, then they might not target it anyway. Let's go for the black market connections. Try and draw into some kind of combo as soon as we can. Gwenna, Eyes of Gaia. So yeah, more plus counter stuff with that. Queen Marquesa going to become the Monarch upon entry. And down to 3 cards in hand. After the land drop, we'll draw a 4th card with the Monarch at the end of the turn. The Garrison Cat being sacrificed to the Viscera Seer. Makes a food token, or a human token. The cat counted as a food, so puts a couple of +1/+1 counters onto our Ygra. So eagerly trying to get into another land or card draw, something like that. The bat does have Vigilance, so can swing in and not worry too much about the Royal Assassin. Triggers to gain 1 life when it attacks, and Campe Orzhov is going for that onto the Garrison Cat. So down it comes again with a finality counter on it, and swinging in at the mono green deck. A Season of the Gathering to start off with. Get a trigger on the black market connections. I think we'll go for all of them here. So that means over the course of the next few turns we're setting ourselves up for Season of the Gathering, which will dictate what we do on this turn. So we could set up, we can't get down the sack outlets unfortunately if we're going to blow up all artifacts is the problem. Let's go Bloodstained Mire, that can be a tap land if we want. And I think we are just holding up the Nature's Claim. Tamiyo's Safekeeping and maybe the Boseiju as well can get rid of an artifact. This will further buff the Ygra. We can maybe one-shot someone next turn with the Season of Gathering. So do we want to start swinging in now? Might be worth making use of our attack phase now, so let's go for the Royal Assassin, getting blown up by a Nature's Claim. Could maybe keep that in play to try and control the board, but I'm not convinced that they won't go for our Ygra with that, so best just play it safe. So down that goes for a couple of plus counters being destroyed. It is obviously an artifact whilst our commander is in play. So now we've got a 10-10, let's turn into the left. Don't necessarily want to see the No Mercy blow up our commander just yet, but I will be swinging in at Queen Marquesa next turn I imagine after the Wrath. With No Mercy it's not an edict effect, it is destroy, so we could have our commander survive with the Tamiyo Safekeeping, but we want to be reactionary with that. So already got someone to 10 commander damage. And all 4 commanders into play now. Green Sleeves, Marrow Sorcerer hits play. I always forget about protection from Planeswalkers and Wizards with this. Not sure how often that's going to be relevant, but best to keep an eye on that one. Plays a land into it to make the first Badger token, and does now have the power and toughness for this, I think. Yes, he does. Activates the Mosswalk Bridge. We'll see what he cheats into play. Does have food sack fodder to point at our Ygra if he wants to. Okay, but didn't cast the spell for whatever reason. Yeah, not sure what happened there. I'm assuming Queen Marquesa is going to have quite a few removal spells in the deck, but can't necessarily point them at Ygra now. thanks to the whole ward effect. Emberwild Captain is going to take the monarchy again, even though they already have it. So it's just more pillow fort stuff, really. And hopefully doesn't hold up mana for a Teferi's Protection or something. Looks as though he is going to hold up mana. Continues to sit back, draws a 4th card with the Monarch. A Lunar Convocation. At the beginning of your end step, if you gain life this turn, each opponent loses a life, that's fine. And at the beginning of the end step, you get a bat token. Yeah, that's fine as well. So, scrying again, sacrificing the Viscera Seer itself. So, more plus counters on Ygra. Strange that they sacrificed the sack outlet to that. The 3/3 Zora line comes in towards us this time. Does have mana held up, so sacrifice the Viscera Seer just to get a free scry. They're just kind of arbitrarily adding a finality counter onto that for some reason. And Boseiju, we could point it at something here, but I'd rather have 7 mana held up next turn. We'll have 5 lands, 6 and 7 with the treasure. So we can go for Season of Gathering and hold up Tamiyo's Safekeeping that way. The Lunar Convocation triggers twice, so they get a bat token, and each of us loses a life. So we are down to 30, and at the end step we'll grab a Surveil land, see what's on top, see if we can clear it off the top if we don't like it. On top is a Sakura Tribe Elder. I don't think we particularly need that, as long as we can keep our commander in play. Throw it in the graveyard. Noteworthy Queen Marquesa keeps holding up interactions, so I'm guessing they do have a Teferi's Protection or something like that. Could have gone for the Boseiju to try and test that and see if we want to hold off on the Season of Gathering, but when we've got Tamiyo's Safekeeping available to us, I'm hoping we'll be able to stick our commander. Alright, there's a combo piece, Camellia the Seedmaster, or Seed Miser I should say. So that's one of the easier combos to go for. We've actually got infinite power and toughness on our commander. With that, we'll go over that in a minute. Treasure, draw a card, no point in making a shapeshifter if we're about to blow it up. But yeah, with Camellia and a sack outlet in play, which we have in hand, we'll be able to make infinite power and toughness onto our commander, so might be doing that in the next turn or two, depending on what happens here. Again, Marquesa holding up priority. And there is a Skull Clamp for us, so could put that onto a shapeshifter before we sacrifice to food or something like that. Anyway, play our land for the turn, and we'll cast Season of the Gathering, making sure to put treasure mana into that. So we can use the same mob more than once, but we've only got 5 of the poor counters, for lack of a better term, to use up here. So Artifact and Enchantment is 2, and then we'll draw a bunch of cards as well, just for the sake of it. Second time in a few games we've used one of the Season Cycle cards, but yeah, I think it was the white one. First time playing the green one, so we'll see how this pans out for us. Marquesa has passed priority, and if we can one-shot this player out of the game, the No Mercy won't matter anymore, I don't think. It should just be removed from the stack if they're out of the game. Viscera Seer in response, they might as well, I suppose, get some free scries, but they're just going to buff up the Ygra even further. That being said, it's pretty much a point at which we're on commander damage anyway. Marquesa gets another chance to respond thanks to the Viscera Seer putting something on the stack, but passes priority again. Opponents will have to be careful to make sure that they've got food in play if they've got spot removal, because they do need to pay the ward, of course, and once the creatures go down, it's not likely that they have any other food tokens. Anyway, more Viscera Seer stuff from the Zora line player, and our commander now at a 16-16. Alright, and now Queen Marquesa deciding to do something, so yeah, gain 3 life by sacrificing. Once again, Ygra going to gain some more power and toughness. Viscera Seer sacrifices again, and the vampire finally sacrifices itself. These creatures, after being reanimated, had finality counters on them. So I assume my opponent's just putting a load of cards onto the bottom and looking for an answer here. And we assume that Season of Gathering is going to finally resolve, so we choose Artifact because the creatures are artifacts. All the creatures other than our commander, of course. So all the creatures get wiped out to that, and Ygra gets even more counters. We draw a bunch of cards thanks to the power of our commander, and we are well and truly able to one-shot someone here. So let's see if we've got anything that we can play. We don't have a Mana Crypt or anything. Do have Mana Vault, but I want to hold up the interaction in order to keep our commander in place. So let's go straight down the middle and see what happens. They actually can't point spot removal now, thanks to the ward, like I said before. So, successfully getting rid of Queen Marquesa to 30 commander damage. and we do take the Monarch as well, as though we need to draw more cards. So time to see what our opponents have for us. There's, yeah, an argument to be made for us going for a Mana Vault. Do we just risk getting it down, and if our opponents can get rid of our commander, then they kind of deserve it? Yeah, not the right play, but let's discard fewer cards here. We'll get down the Ashnod's Altar from the Mana Vault, and then draw into a Sol Ring at the end of the turn as well to the Monarchy, so yeah, discard a bunch here. There we go, so a bunch of things in the bin, and kind of arbitrarily decided to keep hold of stuff. Like I said before, we've got infinite creatures, sack outlets, or sacrifice fodder into this, which is infinite power onto the Ygra, and the Marionette Apprentice is going to be able to bleed all of our opponents out on that combo as well. Not seeing any removal from the green player, which I assumed we wouldn't, as Shire Soul of the Wild does trigger landfall, and it might be that the Orzhov player has a board wipe, in which case we should have held up the Tamiyo safekeeping, but like I said, just decided to take a gamble, seeing as how we are looking quite dominant on our opponents. And it looks as though he doesn't have much of anything. Ketra's Monument and Reanimate. He did leave his commander in the command zone, which I didn't notice previously, so Zoraline Cosmos Caller back into play. Can't afford to pay the cost, but doesn't have anything in the bin anyway. So I'm assuming that our opponents are feeling as though they're able to defend themselves against our commander thanks to the lack of trample. But Ygra is a combo engine, and we don't necessarily want to be one-shotting people in the red zone. Obviously we can do, as we just saw though. If that's a tactic that you wanted to go for outside of combos, then you could also pack a bunch of spot removal and clear the way for your commander to get through for lethal commander damage as well. That is a Mithril Coat for us to keep our commander in play. But I think we're just comboing off here, all off the back of the Jeweled Lotus for the most part. We'll put life into this just in case we don't manage to get it done. But we do have the Tamiyo safekeeping for a Swords to Plowshares still. Black Market Connections providing us with sack fodder for the Camellia combo, but we've got enough in hand to get that going anyway. And draw into a land off that, so we'll just throw out the Inventor's Fair, seeing as how we have Metalcraft, turn that into a Sol Ring. And then we definitely want down the new Squirrel Legend, Camellia. And there we go, Path to Exile, not Swords to Plowshares, so we'll make our opponent pay the ward cost here before we show him the Tamiyo safekeeping. The fact that it has ward makes all the difference, that's why I keep banging on about it. So he either sacrifices his commander here to get the Path to Exile through, or he doesn't, and we're just swinging over there anyway, for all he knows. But unfortunately, we do have hexproof. Whoa, and I nearly gave the Beseju hexproof there. We need to be very careful. So with Tamiyo, we choose the target to give hexproof to first, then we pay with the Beseju mana. So now hexproof and indestructible. It's the hexproof that's going to protect us with the path. And that player decides to scoop. He assumes that we're going in towards him to get lethal commander damage down, or he knows about the Camellia combo. So then we'll throw down the Marionette Apprentice, and that has Fabricate, so it will come down with a Servo token. And let's sacrifice the Servo token straight away. And that will trigger Camellia because the Servo is a food token, so we get a Squirrel, which will also be a food token. Sacrificing a creature will trigger the Marionette Apprentice for a bleed of 1. And like I said, the Camellia Squirrel will be a food token, so we can do this infinitely at this point. Do it once more and we'll get the Pitiless Plunderer in as well, so that's even infinite mana for us if we want it. Not sure if we've got a creature to tutor out with the Archdruid's Charm that could refill our hand, but we'll get this going anyway, just in case our opponent can disrupt this. I don't see that he could while he's tapped out, and plus he's in mono green. So now we're getting the infinite treasure, the infinite squirrels and death triggers, infinite bleed on our opponent with the apprentice, and infinite power and toughness onto the Ygra. So seeing as how our opponent wants us to play it out, let's go for the Mithril Coat onto our commander, just for the sake of emptying our hand here. And out of interest, we'll see which creature we could maybe grab to refill our hand with the Archdruid's Charm. The number of times this card has been relevant ever since it was printed. Okay, we could have Yawgmoth Physician, I suppose. Why don't we get down the Mirkwood Bats just to make things quicker? It might be that our opponent hasn't seen the infinite combo, but Yawgmoth would be the thing to go for there. And yeah, our opponent sees what we just tutored for and has now seen that we've got the infinite. So yeah, off the back of a Jeweled Lotus, Ygra Eater of All is a pretty good one apparently. I think we all knew that this was a combo machine, but good to see it in action. You'll see a game in the next few weeks in which it didn't go too well, so get a bit more of a game out of it from our opponents. But hopefully you all enjoyed this showcase anyway. I do like to show off the commanders and the decks as best I can. Deck list is in the description as always, right next to the link to Patreon. Big thank you to those of you who decide to support the channel monetarily. I'm tribalkai. Thank you for watching.